All right, guys. So I said that I was thinking about making a video covering the whole tariff situation, and so here we are. To anyone who's new to this channel, this is not an action figure news channel. This is just a subject that I personally think is very important because, action figures are like, I guess, a large part of my life, and this information should be pretty important to anyone who collects action figures. So I figured, since I've seen, well, no pun intended on the I figured, but since I've, basically been kind of researching this subject, kind of following it since around like November of last year, it would probably be, advantageous to a lot of people to kind of compile a lot of the information I've seen into one video to give like a general overview about different companies and stuff. So I'm going to try to break this video up into different sections for different like companies or different figure lines. So we'll have, Dragon Ball, we'll have wrestling, Jada Toys, that kind of stuff. And I'm going to put chapters in the video so that if you want to see a specific company or specific figure line, you can like go to that part of the video. Okay. So first I'm going to cover just some general updates or current state of affairs information for tariffs as a whole. Okay. Now keep in mind, this is a very volatile or unpredictable situation, and it can change, at a whim, basically. So what I'm saying right now, I'm recording this on April 11th at about 3:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Time. Okay. What I'm saying right now may not be true tomorrow. Okay. But as of right now, what I've last heard, tariffs on every country except China are paused for 90 days as of April 9th, which was 2 days ago from when I'm recording this right now. Okay. The tariffs on China are in full effect, and they are at 125% as of this recording, as far as I'm aware. Okay. I also heard that Vietnam and the US are very close to finalizing some kind of zero tariff agreement between the two countries. So that may be advantageous for certain companies who have a lot of their manufacturing in Vietnam. Of course, regarding SH Figuarts, we're going to cover that soon. But regarding SH Figuarts, we know that over the past few years, more and more of them have been, made in Vietnam instead of made in China. Okay, so perhaps that would be something that ends up being a very good business decision for them because of our situation. So speaking of SH Figuarts and Dragon Ball, Bandai has not made any official statement regarding the tariffs as far as I'm aware. I do have a personal theory of sorts that the Lowest Born Saiyan Goku, which was supposed to be released in March 2025 and has only now been found by someone in April, I suspect that its release was delayed due to the whole tariff controversy. I don't have any, solid evidence of that, but it would make sense to me as to why the release seemed to be kind of delayed or messed up in some way. Now, someone on Instagram named SJS Figure Collector reported that they found the Lowest Born Saiyan Goku, and it was for $35 according to their post. Now, something to note is that on the box in the image they shared, it says made in China. So I'm wondering how this figure may be affected in the future. Like it's $35 right now according to this post, but will it remain $35? I don't know. We'll have to stay tuned and see. Because it's possible that whatever figure this person has was already in the US before the new tariffs were enacted, right? So therefore it wouldn't be affected by those tariffs. However, new shipments of this Goku, if they are being brought from China, would be affected by the tariffs. Okay, so whether that would present itself in the form of a price increase, I don't know. Bandai might decide to just not increase the price, but I would not be surprised if within, let's say, a month, 2 months or so, we see the price of this increase from $35 to possibly $40. I don't know, more than that, we'll have to see. Of course, SH Figuarts recently revealed their nail for, I believe, $80, which many people have said, rightfully so, that it is quite expensive, and I agree. Whether that price is due to tariffs or just due to Bandai overcharging like they always do, I don't know. And something else to note is that the lowest born Saiyan Goku, according to the official Dragon Ball website, is available only in North America. So the tariffs in the US are very relevant to this figure, even more so than other SH Figuarts figures. Now we move on to wrestling action figures. Ringside Collectibles has not made any statement about the tariffs that I'm aware of, but Mattel has. Here we have an article from LA Business Journal entitled Mattel Plans Layoffs, Prepares for New Tariffs. Okay, it says, El Segundo toy manufacturer Mattel Inc. announces layoffs with possibly more to come by Mark R. Madler. This is from March 31st, 2025. It says Mattel Inc. has cut about 35% of its non-manufacturing workforce, with more such reductions coming. The El Segundo toy maker and entertainment company filed a notice with the State Employment Department on March 17th that it would lay off 120 employees from its El Segundo headquarters. It is eliminating various roles, including in marketing, design, and information technology. Some of the employees hold positions as managers, directors, or vice presidents, who are expected to begin leaving Mattel in May, according to the notice. Still, in an appearance at the UBS Global Consumer and Retail Conference on March 13th, Mattel Chief Executive Ynon Kreiz, I apologize if I just messed up your name, said that financially the company was in the strongest position it's been in many years. Importantly, this is a quote from them. Importantly, we've also evolved the company in terms of where it started, where the company used to describe itself as a toy manufacturing company, to become what Mattel is today, is an IP, intellectual property company, Kreiz said. And from a company that was selling items off a shelf, we're now managing franchises with global audiences. Additionally, he said the company has changed its way of thinking about the people who buy its products, not just as consumers, but as fans that have an emotional relationship with products that we make and experiences that we create, he said. This strategy has served Mattel very well in terms of how it infuses brand purpose and controls relevance in everything it does, Kreiz continued. And while we reduced our non-manufacturing workforce by over 35%, we've cut SKUs or SKUs, stock keeping units, a scannable code to help vendors track inventory by more than 35%, he added. In the past year, the stock price of Mattel has increased in value by a modest 2%. Let's see here. Let's just go forward to the tariff part. Effect of Trump's tariffs. Like other toy companies, Mattel faces price increases due to the tariffs implemented on goods from China, Mexico, and Canada by President Donald Trump. Anthony DiSilvestro, Mattel's chief financial officer, said that Mattel's teams have been engaged in analyzing and planning for a range of scenarios. In terms of the financial impact on Mattel, our 2025 guidance includes the anticipated impact of the new tariffs based on what we know today and mitigating actions we plan to take, including those leveraging the strength of our supply chain and potential pricing, DiSilvestro said during a conference call in early February with analysts to discuss fourth quarter financials. Mattel is working to ensure that each of the 7 countries where it produces toys and games makes up less than 25% of its global manufacturing by 2027. China currently makes up less than 40%, compared to an industry average of about 80%, according to DiSilvestro. Less than 10% comes from Mexico, while no products are made in Canada, he added. Mattel also plans to decrease its dependency on any one region and plans to close a factory in China by the end of this year, according to a story from Reuters from March 13th. We used to have 4 factories that we owned in China. By the end of the year, it will be down to 1, Kreiz told the Wire service, referring to a supply chain diversification strategy that started in 2018, the Reuters story said. Okay, so based on this, it's sounding like Mattel shouldn't be affected by the China tariffs as much as other companies will be, but I would think there's still going to be some effect, just not as much. You know, I personally was really looking forward, or I still am, in essence, looking forward to the new Monday Night War Ultimate Edition Stone Cold Steve Austin, but I'm not sure how that will be affected by tariffs and stuff, so I decided to just get the greatest hits one just in case. So the prices on the greatest hits and the original Ultimate Edition Stone Cold Steve Austin have really dropped pretty drastically probably because of the Monday Night War one being announced. So, it's up to you what you do, but I would probably, if you really need a Stone Cold Steve Austin, like I did, then I would probably get one of those just in case. But I could be overreacting. Okay, it may have a normal release. All right. Now I'll say this as well. Walmart is where people pre-ordered their Stone Cold Steve Austin Ultimate Edition figures, right? And Walmart is infamous for canceling wrestling figure pre-orders and all that kind of stuff. So don't be surprised if, because of tariffs, Walmart has to cancel your pre-order or they tell you something about an additional charge. I don't know. We're going to have to see. Now on to Zombie Sailor Toys. This is another wrestling figure company, and they've been very vocal about how tariffs are going to be basically devastating to them as a business. So this is from WrestlingFigureNews.com. It says, with President Donald Trump now threatening to place 104% tariffs on all goods imported from China starting Wednesday, Zombie Sailor Toys is cutting off pre-orders for its modern scale Heels and Faces Pinnacle collection at midnight. When he says Wednesday, he means April 9th. This was, I think, Tuesday is when this was posted. The first series of Pinnacle figures features yada, yada, yada. So each figure retails for $49.99. Yep. And moving on, we have, in an email to consumers, Zombie Sailor Toys explained that the Trump administration's plans to impose 104% tariffs on China led him to stop taking orders tonight, Tuesday, April 8th. If you already purchased any Pinnacle figures, do not be alarmed. Your figures and your price is locked in, Josh Taylor wrote in the email. The Pinnacle figures are deep into manufacturing. The Jarrett and Pillman figures are nearly done. These are not being canceled. As of this writing, the U.S. just imposed a 104% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. from China, which is where all the Heels and Faces figures are made, he continued. What does that mean? That means all of our production costs just more than doubled, as we, not China, are responsible for paying this 104% tariff. As many of you may be aware, Heels and Faces is a labor of love. We are an independent company running on razor-thin profit margins. We create these collectibles out of love. If these tariffs remain in place, we either would have to greatly raise our prices or completely restructure our business. If you were on the fence about the Pinnacle figures, and if you like what we do and have done these last 5 years, we ask that you support us by making a purchase in these very troubling and uncertain times. Lock in these prices and you are guaranteed a set. We may not be able to offer these figures again. This tariff situation is unlike anything that has been seen before. It is going to destroy many businesses. We hope that we can repost the Pinnacle figures in the near future if this whole tariff war ends, but it is very likely they will be at a higher price as we have no choice. We are still monitoring the situation with the Bloodsport figures tomorrow, which are currently scheduled to go up for pre-order. Thank you for your support. The article continues. Sailor posted more about how the tariffs would affect his business in the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast Facebook group, explaining that if a raw figure costs $20, the 104% tariff would increase the cost by $20.80 to $40.80. In a similar post to the email, Sailor wrote that every Pinnacle figure that is being sold, we are basically losing $15. Although tariffs are placed on imported goods from countries, those costs are paid for by the companies importing the goods, which then either eat the costs, unlikely, or pass them on to consumers in the form of higher prices for goods. If you were considering ordering the Pinnacle figures, get them while you can. And here's a note about Jazwares. It says Jazwares Chief Brand Officer and U.S. Toy Association board member Jeremy Padower wrote over the weekend that the not-for-profit organization is seeking a global 0% reciprocal tariff agenda and advocating for zero tariffs for toys. 20 trade associations from China, Canada, Mexico, Vietnam, France, Germany, and the European Union have joined the effort. Tariffs have been delayed in the past. However, the White House has said that the 104% tariffs will be imposed Wednesday. So, yeah, the tariffs on China they're actually 125%, not 104 now. And certainly the ones on China were not delayed. Okay, so based on this, this post kind of, made me panic a bit, I guess. And I ended up buying the Jeff Jarrett, okay? But as far as these figures go, the Brian Pillman for me, the figure looks really high quality, really well made, really well made and everything. But the likeness to me is just, it's not spot on. Mattel's likeness to me looks more like Brian Pillman. This one looks a bit generic. Like if you basically looked at just the head sculpt by itself without the body, you would have a difficult time knowing like that is specifically Brian Pillman. It looks more like this is just a kind of a generic person. You know what I mean? King Kong Bundy, I did want that initially, but it has no upper leg articulation. So I couldn't, for example, animate him walking, and as an animator for me, that's a deal breaker. So I decided not to get that one. Abdullah the Butcher, I didn't really care about that one to begin with. So Jeff Jarrett was the only one I got because it is honestly just incredibly well made. It looks incredibly well made, okay? But Zombie Sailor Toys also posted on Instagram about this situation. So let me show you that right now. All right, here is Zombie Sailor Toys Instagram post covering the same subject, the tariffs, the Pinnacle collection. Let's see, they called it Tariff Tuesday. Guess they're trying to be funny there. And it says it's Tariff Tuesday, urgent. The Pinnacle collection is coming down at midnight Central Standard Time due to the newly imposed 104% tariffs. What does this mean? That means every Pinnacle figure that is being sold, we are basically losing money on. The tariffs just doubled production costs across the board, and we cannot keep the Pinnacle figures up and continue to take a loss. As you know, Heels and Faces is a labor of love. We make cool collectibles with razor-thin profit margins. End of story. The Pinnacle collection is deep into production. They are beautiful figures, and we are not taking any shortcuts, even if it means we end up in the red. We hope we can repost the Pinnacle figures at a later date, but who knows what tomorrow brings and for what price. Your prices are locked in, and we will continue to be the top independent action figure brand that we can be. We appreciate everyone's support in these uncertain times. The Bloodsport figures that were scheduled to be posted tomorrow, that is now also uncertain, but we are closely monitoring the tariff situation. Please stay tuned. And I will note that I saw the Fig Guys had a show recently, and they were saying that there are some inconsistencies in what Zombie Sailor Toys is saying, because on the one hand, as far as they said, he was like, bragging about how much money they're making, how much the royalty checks are and all this kind of stuff. And then here he's saying he has razor thin profit margins. So I don't know, I would like to see him perhaps go on their show and talk to them about it and stuff like that. I think it'd be pretty good to clear some stuff up, because there are some questionable details. All right. But that is Zombie Sailor Toys. Another wrestling figure toy company called Hasttel Toys or Hasttel Toys. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. They also posted about the tariff situation, and I believe they're also a pretty small company. Here's their post. It said, last call for all pre-orders will end at April 10th, 2025 at the stroke of midnight. We are not going out of business. Head over to the site, link in bio. So they also made some adjustments because of the tariff situation. Then they posted, I think this was a post after that one. It said, clarification, our pre-orders end tonight at 12 a.m. We are not going out of business. Thank you. Okay. It says we are not going out of business. Pre-orders are ending due to the uncertainty of prices going forward. Thanks. All right. So yeah. Okay. Next, we're going to cover Jada Toys Street Fighter. So recently at WonderCon 2025, June from Jada Toys had an interview with a YouTube channel called Figures Not Included. And here is an audio clip of that interview.
Cool. Yeah. How has the reception been to Scooby-Doo?
I think it's been pretty good. I mean, it was a little bit awkward because the price came out higher than the original asking. Mm-hmm. But with the things going on, I think timing-wise, we were the first company to have that price increase.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to kind of see that trickle down to everybody,
right?
And even outside the toy industry, most likely. So
how is that affecting you guys in terms of the price increase internally?
It's kind of affecting us, but there's nothing we can really do about it. Like price points are very inconsistent like recently.
Right.
So we'll see where it settles into in the next
Right.
year or so. But yeah, it's just unfortunate, but it's just what it is.
Right. And I know some websites are different. Big Bad, you obviously had to raise the prices there. Entertainment Earth still has certain figures at a certain price.
Yeah, so I think as far as like tariff specific, you know, there's going to be a cutoff date where anything that comes from China into the U.S. is going to be hit with the tariffs.
Yeah.
But if there's product that's already in U.S. warehouses or is being shipped prior to the cutoff date, you're not going to be hit with the tariff. So there's going to be some inconsistencies, I'm assuming, across all companies until things kind of stabilize to what it's going to be.
Right. Do you think it's going to be the new normal sort of price? Will it go back down?
Maybe.
Or
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I remember when $20 was the new normal, and then during COVID, 25 became the new normal.
Yeah.
But, you know, everyone kind of adapted to that, consumers and toy companies.
Yeah.
So I think no matter what happens, I think everyone's just going to have to adapt to it.
Right.
And just accept what the new normal is. So, yeah.
Yeah. What a dour way to go about it. But, you know, it's the reality of it, right? So certain things are out of your...
There's no sugarcoating what it is.
Yeah.
So that's just what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So as the guy mentioned, if you check Big Bad Toy Store right now, their Sagat pre-order is for $34.99, and it originally was $29.99. Entertainment Earth still has the original price of $29.99. I'm not sure why. Perhaps they already had some Sagat, stock in the US, and Big Bad Toy Store doesn't. I'll show you right here. So here you see Big Bad Toy Store Sagat is for $34.99, right? And Entertainment Earth, he is at $29.99. Okay. Now, as a purchaser, I would say I think the Big Bad Toy Store will probably still be a better price overall because of their $4 flat rate shipping. On Entertainment Earth, if you want like free shipping, you got to go to like $79 plus, which is quite a bit. I remember last year, I think late last year, they had a flat rate shipping just like Big Bad Toy Store, but they didn't continue for a very significant amount of time. So now this is the shipping offer from them. Free shipping on orders $79 plus. Okay, so if you're ordering $79 plus, then perhaps this will be better for you. But for me, I usually don't purchase one purchase of that much money. Okay, so really up to you. But those are the different prices right there. Now, as far as I understand, June also said that Street Fighter figures should be going to Walmart and Target as well. So if you want, you can also wait to see if they show up in those stores. But I personally recently bought a Sagat from Aliexpress because I'm just a bit uncertain about how these Sagat pre-orders will be affected and stuff like that, and the price of Jada Toys and that kind of stuff. And I'm going to cover later in this video whether it is okay or safe to buy from AliExpress. Okay, that's going to be a later part of this video. But I'm just going to show you right now Big Bad Toy Store's email about this tariff situation. Oh yeah, and I should mention the Storm Arena, Alpha Ryu, and Alpha Ken figures also saw price increases. I believe they were also increased by like $5 on Big Bad Toy Store. So this is an email I received from Big Bad Toy Store on April 9th at 8:38 p.m. Okay, it says, "Hi everyone, I'm writing to share with you how we are working to handle the rapidly escalating tariff situation. I want to be transparent and honest with you about the impacts of these tariffs. This is a complex situation, so I apologize up front for the length of my note, but I feel it is important to be as clear as possible in this difficult time. Tariffs, what just happened? For 25 years, we have operated as a family-owned business under a 0% tariff rate. Several months ago, a 10% tariff was enacted for goods made in China. It was then doubled to 20%. In April, a 34% tariff was added to the total, bringing us to 54%. Last night, another 50% was added, and today, April 9th, an additional 21% was added, bringing us to 125% total tariffs on Chinese goods. Vietnam was to be subject to a 46% tariff, but it appears that this has been reduced to 10% for the next 90 days. These two countries manufacture 90% of the goods that we sell. What is the impact? This unfortunately is going to result in retail price increases on products impacted by the tariffs, including new and open pre-orders. We are working hard to minimize these increases through discussions with our vendors, deploying the most efficient importing processes, or processes, whichever you prefer, and ultimately sharing directly in the financial pain. I'm heartbroken to have to do this, and I hate this tariff situation. It is ridiculous, poorly thought out, poorly implemented, cruel, and punishing to everyone involved in affected countries and at every level of our industry. Who pays tariffs? Tariffs are a tax on the US consumer. I just want to pause for a moment. That statement is not accurate, okay? Tariffs are not a tax on the US consumer. Tariffs are basically import charges that companies who import goods from certain countries have to pay. So it is not a tax on the consumer. However, it basically usually ends up working that way because when companies who import goods from abroad have to pay additional tariffs, they usually increase their prices, which causes customers to pay more for the products, okay? But a tariff in itself is not a tax on the US consumer, okay? Continuing, foreign governments do not pay these tariffs. The US-based companies who import these goods are directly responsible for paying the tariffs, which is accurate. And ultimately, the US-based consumer pays for them through higher product prices. Yes, that is how it usually ends up working out. We are devastated that it has to come to this, and we will continue to work hard to minimize the impact to you. When and how will prices change? In the past month, we have raised prices in a manner that was inclusive of expected tariffs, while also honoring previously pre-ordered prices. Unfortunately, the dramatic increases in tariff levels has now made this approach impossible. To minimize confusion during this rapidly changing situation, we will be changing newly affected pre-order product listings to reflect our normal, non-tariff based price. We will also add a notice indicating that a tariff surcharge will be added at the time of the product's arrival. We will inform you of the full amount before your payment method is charged. You will also be able to cancel your pre-order at that time if the surcharge amount is something you do not wish to pay. Our customer service team, as always, will be ready to help with any issues that arise from this situation, and we will be very flexible given the circumstances. Today, we expect the surcharge may be between 15% to 40% of the pre-order price. However, that could change as the situation continues to unfold. Please note that any items currently in stock are not subject to the tariff. We are working as fast as we can to make these changes clear on our site, but it will take us time. We have over 10,000 items listed for pre-order currently, and it is going to take us time to work through how each vendor will respond to their specific tariff situation. Our supply chain is complex, and we have hundreds of vendors. The timing of when a particular tariff is applied will depend on a variety of factors, including import shipping dates and any new rules set by the government. Finally, I absolutely hate increasing prices to you, but the tariff situation is beyond our control. If tariffs are reduced or removed, we will reduce or remove the tariff surcharges on orders accordingly. My pledge to you is that we will be fair and we will share the pain of this. I assure you we are already feeling significant economic and business disruption pain from these tariffs. We will continue to work hard to serve you with the quality and customer service level you expect as we navigate through this difficult time. I want to thank you deeply for all the trust and loyalty that you have placed in BBTS with your collecting passion. Whether you have recently joined our family or have been with us for years, we truly value our relationship with you and will do our best to continue to earn your trust every day. Sincerely, Joel Boblet, founder and president. Okay? So basically, let's say, for example, I pre-ordered the Sagat from Big Bad Toy Store, right? This one here, the Jada Toys Sagat. Essentially, what I gather from that email is that they're going to change this price back to $29.99. However, when I get the invoice or, the bill to pay for the item when it's ready to be shipped to me or whatever, they're going to tell me about the additional charges necessary, the surcharges due to tariffs or all that kind of stuff. So for me personally, depending on what the surcharge is, how much of a percentage it is, I may decide to be like, okay, that's a bit too much. I've already hopefully got one from Aliexpress. I don't need this one. But if it's not too much, then I may end up with 2 Sagat figures. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. All right, now moving on to Hasbro. I don't personally collect any Hasbro figures. I know they make Transformers and they make Marvel Legends, but I don't collect either of those. However, I know there are a lot of people who do, so I figured that that would be something useful to include in this video. So the Hasbro CEO has directly spoken on this tariff situation, and this is a short video clip from Yahoo Finance, and it's only about 3 minutes, so I'm going to play it so you can see what he said.
Let's talk a little bit about the business of toys. I'm looking at this toy in real time, this Transformers toy. I mean, like, look, we're in this world of like, there's a trade war, Chris. I don't have to tell you this, but you know, how does this get made in this era of trade war? Like how much more will that cost? You know, this cool sword, how much does that cost? Like, and how do you keep this thing a profitable venture for a company like Hasbro?
Well, the tariff is basically a cost on the product, and costs on products will ultimately get passed through to the end user. So, you know, our preference would be that we minimize tariffs wherever possible, because
I just want to say that was a much more accurate and less misleading description of tariffs. So I appreciate that from this specific CEO here.
we're very focused on affordability and getting the lowest possible price points to our consumers. So something like this action figure will go for around $20, $25.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And so it's usually made in markets like China or Vietnam, increasingly India and Indonesia, where labor costs are lower, where there's a relatively sophisticated supply chain that can take care of like the IP that's associated with it, and can also, most importantly, take care of the safety concerns, because these things are ideally oriented towards children.
Do you tell, now we have tariff, with 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, 10% more on China, do you tell toy designers, hey, you have to redesign how a product is done to bring down costs? Is it that intricate, I guess?
Well, we'll do a couple things. So we'll work with our suppliers and try to wrest whatever cost savings that we can out of them. We can do that in a couple different ways. We can negotiate with them and try to get costs down as much as we can, but recognizing they operate on very slim margins, like 3 or 4%. We also can do consolidation of the vendors that we work with, so we can drive scale, and that lowers the average unit cost of things. We can look at the design of a product and try to cost optimize it, which we've been doing very actively for the last 3 years. And usually when we do that, it's not an approach of shrinkflation. Like, you know, I used to buy a half gallon of ice cream and now I get
but this Transformer came with, used to come with 2 arms, now it has 1.
So we don't do that. But what we try to do is we try to be clever with how the internals are designed, how the mechanisms are designed, so that it's still fun. But maybe we can, you know, trim off a couple things that the user won't notice and get the prices down. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about tariffs in the neighborhood of 20% plus, that's a cost that we can't fully accommodate, and will have to be passed on.
And how much does that change the economics of the toy business?
Well, I think it depends on what the elasticity is, and that depends on the category. So, you know, a higher end kind of action figure that appeals to kind of multiple demographics, both kids and adults, that tends to be a more inelastic category. Like you can you have a little bit more pricing power. For things that are oriented towards like kids, and where parents are on a budget, you know, you'll tend to have to really work hard to try to hit magic price points.
All right, so yeah, that was the Hasbro CEO on the tariff situation. The last company we're going to cover here is McFarlane Toys. This is a post from toynewseye.com, Toy News International. It says McFarlane Toys says price hikes coming because of tariffs. This is from March 25th, 2025. McFarlane Toys is warning of coming price hikes on their social media platforms. They posted this today. DC Multiverse core item manufacturer suggested retail price is now $24.99. Due to the 20% tariffs imposed on imports from China to the United States, some of our products will see price increases effective immediately. We have worked hard to minimize the impact and have limited these adjustments to only certain items. As always, our priority is to bring fans the best products at the most affordable prices possible. We appreciate your continued support and understanding. So yeah, for those of you who collect McFarlane, that is what they have said about it. I personally don't collect any McFarlane figures currently, although I am interested in their new Mortal Kombat figures that they showed quite recently, probably like a couple months ago. I guess we'll have to see what the price of those ends up being, because if it's really too high, tariffs just completely crazy on them or whatever, I might not get them. Okay. But I was, pretty interested in those figures as far as McFarlane is concerned. So in closing, I want to cover one more thing, that being Aliexpress. Of course, many of you will know that Aliexpress is basically like, I guess, a Chinese version of eBay. And since tariffs began, I have purchased 2 items from Aliexpress. That being like some Cell Junior figures, which were pretty cheap. I think they were like probably $5 per figure. And I bought some 1/10 scale pants, which I believe were somewhere probably between $10 to $20. I can't remember the exact price right now, but I didn't pay tariffs on either of those. I was, customs didn't contact me and tell me, hey, you have to pay tariffs on this thing from China or anything like that. I got them with no problem whatsoever. So I don't know the exact details because based on my research, oftentimes tariffs apply only to goods above a certain value. So like, let's say, $800 or more. So if you buy like an $800 statue, or you have like, $15,000 worth of materials in a shipment, then you may have to pay a tariff on that. But if someone buys like a $5 action figure, they wouldn't have to pay a tariff, So in my experience, I've not personally had any problems buying things from China. But of course, I'm not making massive purchases of like $10,000. I'm buying like just an action figure, an accessory, that kind of stuff. So I also ordered the Jada Toys Sagat from AliExpress recently, and I'm going to see if I get that with no problems as well. So in my, post section, if I do get that Sagat, I'll make a post letting you all know like I had no problems with it or whatever. But yeah, so just basically stay tuned, pay attention. The action figure industry is likely going to experience significant changes over the next few months, especially if this tariff situation continues for a prolonged period of time. But anyways, thank you for watching and take care.